Greetings, my friends. Please consider supporting me in my war to save pop culture by subscribing to my channel and possibly even becoming a channel member for exclusive videos, access to Doomcock emojis, and more. And if you like this video in particular, please consider using the new Super Thanks feature and putting a tip in the tip jar located next to the like buttons down at the bottom of the video. Thank you for watching, and now, on to the video. And so it came to pass that Sunday evening the funeral bells rang out for the Walt Disney Company. Bob Chapek has been fired or forced to resign by the Disney board, and who have they gotten to replace him? Who is the so-called savior they have coming in to fix things at Disney? The very idiot that made it impossible for Chapek to succeed in the first place, Bob Iger. Yep, Bob Chapek was the sacrificial lamb for the Disney board, and in a way, if it wasn't so tragic, it would be funny. The board is falling all over themselves trying to figure out how they lost $1.5 billion on their streaming services by their own admission in their recent earnings call. Oh, how could this be? Oh, my stars and garters! The board is in a panic after such a huge loss, wondering why they're losing money hand over fist, losing $1.5 billion on their streaming content alone, and in a panic they were saying, oh shit, we need an excuse to change the narrative, to restore faith in our fiscal future. The calm, skittish stockholders who now realize that Disney is pissing away investor money doing woke public service announcements for ESG instead of making profits for investors. I know, says the board. We'll pin it on Bob Chapek. Anyone who hasn't been paying attention may believe it, or anyway, it's the only person we can easily pin it on and get rid of. And then, in the spirit of the soulless remakes that we love to shit out, we'll bring back Bob Iger as a human member berry and hope that Disney investors will be dumb enough to identify Iger with better days for Disney. Well, all you stockholders out there, I hate to break it to you, but this is only going to make Disney's financial failures worse because they all sprang from Iger in the first place. Iger and the very board that can't understand why Disney is losing money gloved hand over three-fingered fist. Well, I understand why. It's wokeness, you morons. Wokeness is strangling your profits and driving the parents who don't want queerness in their kids' programming away from you. Disney is failing spectacularly because Disney has allied itself with the wokest fucks on the planet. And as we all know, even if the Disney board doesn't know, get woke, go broke. This is not a rational decision made by intelligent people who genuinely want to make a profit. This is a woke hit on Bob Chapek for daring to buck the ESG commies on the board who were responsible for the spectacular failure of the Disney company in the first place. Time and time again, the extreme woke elements inside Disney have alienated audiences, offended the vast majority of the American people, and defiled their own intellectual properties by using them as platforms for woke propaganda, perverting them and twisting them in the process beyond all recognition. Chapek did what he could to change that culture and got slapped down at every turn because the board is the problem. And now, matters are worse, and Disney is a dead rat walking. I am disgusted and furious about this, but that's a natural revulsion to seeing woke scum rear their ugly heads once more. However, even in my anger, the rational part of me realizes that this is actually spectacularly good news for us. And once I walk you through this, you'll understand why this is a massive win for us in the war on woke and an absolute disaster for Disney. Stay tuned as I tell you why this is the case. It's funny how time tends to dissolve the fog of war and reveal the truth about things. So many of you out there blame Chapek for not going in and kicking ass like Zaslav has done at Warner's. Well, now you know why he didn't. He couldn't. It was impossible to quickly fix a company with a board sucking off the ESG teat and blowing the Walter Kites Foundation and doing reach-arounds for every purple-haired nose ring on Twitter wearing a Che Guevara t-shirt and assless rainbow cowboy chaps. Which describes a lot of Disney's employees these days, mostly handpicked by Iger himself during his reign of error, and left behind as snapping time bombs riddled throughout the company, just waiting for enough outrage to explode. I'm about to analyze an article that appeared last night in the New York Times to prove my thesis that Iger, not Chapek, was the problem. Because this article will make it clear that Chapek was doing what he could to fix things, but he could only go so far. The woke board members, the Kites Foundation guys, the ESG pod people, they were all gunning for Chapek. And he had his flaws, certainly. But those of you who chided him for not moving faster to fix things sadly did not understand the extent of the rot inside Disney. If Chapek had acted more swiftly and boldly, like everyone wanted him to, he would have been fired even sooner. He did what he could, but the chips were stacked against him. So long as Chapek was in charge, there was at least some hope of change, because he did want change, which I will demonstrate and remind people of in this video. But now that Iger has returned, make no mistake about it, Disney is a dead rat walking. Like a cockroach with its head cut off will scurry around for 2 weeks without knowing it, not knowing it's dead. Disney is very much like that right now. They just don't realize yet that they're doomed. Chapek was a money guy, and profit, not gaslighting and social change, was his focus. So in firing him and bringing back in their favorite woke champion, the woke board has once again abandoned any idea of Disney being a for-profit company. They're going all in on their woke agenda now, profit be damned, and laughably they're blaming Chapek for shit that Iger started way back before his departure in 2020. This is a classic case of failing upward in Hollywood. Iger fucks things up beyond repair. They bring in Chapek without giving him the power to fix what Iger fucked up beyond repair. And then they fire Chapek for not repairing Iger's damage. This would be hilarious if it wasn't so fucking disgusting. Ultimately, it's Disney's stockholders who will be paying the price for Disney's lack of vision, for inviting the cultural vandal who broke the company in the first place back inside to finish it off. But instead of simply cursing my head off for 10 minutes solid, which I have already done off camera, let's analyze what this means, trace Chapek's sins back to their original Bob Iger source, and lament the passing of a once great film studio. R.I.P. Disney, the dead rat walking. Look at this article in the New York Times as they chronicle what Chapek did, and then ask yourself, what would Iger have done? And the answer in every single fucking instance is, Iger would have done much, much worse. The New York Times says, quote, "The board of the Walt Disney Company ousted Bob Chapek as chief executive on Sunday after concluding that various missteps had done irreparable damage to his ability to lead, and abruptly announced that Robert A. Iger would return to run the company effective immediately for 2 years. We thank Bob Chapek for his service," Susan Arnold, the board chair, said in a statement. The surprise reinstatement of Mr. Iger and ouster of Mr. Chapek comes in the wake of a disastrous earnings announcement on November 8th. Disney blindsided Wall Street by reporting $1.5 billion in losses at its fledgling streaming division, up from $630 million a year earlier, unquote. Yeah, no shit, Disney. And what caused those massive losses, do you think? Was it Chapek? Or was it all the nauseating woke crap coming out of Disney that made Americans and parents cancel their Disney Plus and their Disney vacations? Maybe it was pissing off Florida with your not at all secret gay agenda. Maybe it was putting a blue fairy that looked like Mr. Clean and Drag dipped in a blue toilet bowl cleaner into your horrible live-action remake of Pinocchio that turned off audiences. Maybe it was radical propagandists promising to do everything they could to insert queerness in children's programming. Maybe it was shitty garbage like She-Hulk shaking her ass twerking, a movie about menstruation, allowing Kennedy to wreck every single franchise she can sink her crony claws into in the name of toppling the so-called patriarchy. Maybe it was insulting your viewers, doing race swapping and virtue casting and shitty remake after shitty remake, making a Star Wars theme park without any Star Wars in it, making a horrible galactic cruiser hotel that was overpriced and underfund. The list of Disney's offenses against the normal, average, mainstream American consumer goes on, and when a business makes enemies of its customers, calling them trolls and istophobes, when those customers reject your substandard products, this is what happens, you clueless creators of claptrap and crap. The article continues, stating, after the loss of $1.5 billion was announced, quote, Disney shares dropped 12% the next morning, in part because investors and many people inside Disney were shocked by the happy-go-lucky tone that Mr. Chapek struck while discussing the earnings report on a conference call with analysts. Mr. Chapek's demeanor struck many as tone-deaf, unquote. Ha! Well, guess what, you idiots? He was downplaying the loss. If he had been all gloom and doom, the board would have said he wasn't being inspirational and showing optimism and leading, and they'd have fired him anyway. This was a woke hit job, pure and simple. What did you want Chapek to say? The sky is falling, we're all doomed? You stupid shits! He's been saying that for years behind the scenes, trying to rein in the woke bullshit that's been killing the company by separating it from its non-woke audience that hates that shit. But no, it was Chapek's breezy tone that was the problem. Sure it was, dipshits. Well, who knows? Maybe he was mocking you then, like we're mocking your dumbasses now. Maybe it was an I told you so tone, because you dumb shits will not learn your lesson. Go woke, go broke. The article continues, quote, Mr. Chapek, 62, was named CEO in February 2020, taking over from the exceedingly popular Mr. Iger. The handoff did not go smoothly. The coronavirus pandemic forced Mr. Chapek to close most of the company. This year, Mr. Chapek contended with one crisis after another, some of his own making. Right. Actually, most of the crises this article goes on to cite originated with Iger, as I will demonstrate. But COVID was a crisis for every corporation on Earth, and so failing to take that into account when evaluating Chapek's performance is gross negligence. I just wanted to be clear on that, but let's go on. Quote, in March, Disney became entangled in a heated dispute with Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida, a Republican, over legislation meant to prohibit classroom discussion of sexual orientation and gender identity through the third grade. Mr. Chapek tried not to take a side at first, at least publicly, which prompted an employee revolt. Mr. Chapek then denounced the bill, setting off a political firestorm with right-wing figures railing against woke Disney, unquote. Yes, and whose fault was this incident? Here's where we really see the truth of what's going on here. In actual fact, it was Bob Iger who aggressively stalked the company with a whole lot of purple-haired nose-ring holdo types and LGBTQIA MOUSE assholes who feel somehow entitled to transform the company from a family-friendly entertainment profit center into a family-subverting propaganda machine for every woke, whiny cause under the sun. Chapek wanted to keep Disney far away from all the political crap, which is why he didn't take a stand against the so-called Don't Say Gay bill in Florida. Then, the very whacktivists that Iger seeded throughout the company rose up and caused trouble, and at the time, many in our movement gave Chapek shit for bending the knee to these wankers. But I ask you, what would Iger have done? Iger would have jumped right in to misuse company resources for political purposes, and he would have condemned the bill right away and gotten the company in Dutch with Florida even faster than Chapek did. Iger would have started out on his knees to the woke wankers, who wouldn't have even had to ask Iger to kowtow. At least Chapek stood up to them briefly and tried to do the right thing, to keep Disney out of politics. But as far as the purple hairs who protested go, who the fuck put them in the company in the first place? It was Iger. So the New York Times, trying to characterize this as a Chapek misstep, is idiotic and ignorant of the history and culture of Disney, all of which are deeply fucked now, thanks to Iger. The article continues, quote, "In June, Mr. Chapek abruptly fired Disney's top television executive to howls of disapproval from Hollywood," unquote. Yeah, that's right, he did. And that right there is another reason why Chapek was targeted, because this Rice guy who got fired was one of the wokest of the woke in Hollywood. He was involved with the Walter Kitts Foundation, a woke think tank in Hollywood. And so his firing was a no-no with that mob. Rice was the start of the purge at Disney, the very purge that Chapek wanted, to start trying to rein in the wokeness. This was a strong blow against the SJW overlords in Hollywood. Chapek was indeed fulfilling the promise he made that I reported on back in the day, pulling Disney away from wokeness and toward profitability in the mainstream of America again, and the woke weren't having it. Then layoffs started coming, and Chapek was beginning the woke purge long anticipated and long desired, and that's when the woke element struck and took him out. And yet, all that said, every dark cloud has a silver lining, and while this is probably an apocalypse for Disney, this is a victory for us. Why? This is good news for us because Disney is dead and doesn't even realize it yet. The good news for us is the woke board has drawn the wrong conclusion about what the problem is. The board is too stupid to understand. It is the wokeness of the board itself that is killing them. They simply do not understand that they and their wokeness are the problem, and that is why Disney is doomed. Disney will pay the price for their lack of vision, and our revenge will be Disney's inevitable decline as they get rid of Chapek, who is a voice for moderation, and double down on the very extreme wokeness that is killing them. They lived by the woke. They will die by the woke. And this is happening over at Paramount too, people. The woke virus is finally moving into its terminal phase in a lot of these companies, and the desperation of this firing is the desperate thrashing around of the dying patient. The bottom line is, Disney is bleeding out money, losing money hand over fist. They think firing Bob Chapek will fix things, but they're so wrong. And it's going to be very amusing watching them continue to sink as they pursue every remedy but the one that could save them, getting rid of wokeness in their programming. And every time a woke company bleeds money, an angel gets his wings. In this war on woke, Disney is looking to make itself the first fatality, though they better hurry up and die if they want that distinction, because Paramount is on its last legs for similar reasons. The point being, reality is a harsh mistress, and the realities of capitalism and the need to respect customers and give them what they want is finally catching up to Disney. This is good news, my friends, and necessary for us if we're going to win this war on woke. And if nothing else, the firing of Bob Chapek proves that I was right about him being on our side, doing what he could to curb the legacy of excess and woke wankery that was Bob Iger's curse. Disney is truly a dead rat walking. Now we just need to keep watching until Disney finally realizes it's dead and drops to the ground. R.I.P. Disney, you had a nice run, but get woke, go broke. From the center of the earth, this is Dictor Van Doomcock bidding you all, my friends, stay angry. ha ha ha